Hi, I'm Tony Flanders, Associate Editor at Sky and Telescope, and I'm discussing one of the 3 telescopes that Josh Roth and I reviewed in the March issue. I think the other 2 don't really need much explanation. You can just take them out of the box and anybody would know immediately how to use them. This one has a few little tricks and gotchas, so I just want to give a few tips on using it. So turning the telescope side to side is totally straightforward except for one little thing. My colleague Josh found out the hard way that if you have this knob tightened all the way and start turning the telescope, it actually ends up unscrewing it from the mount, which is not what you want to do. So instead you keep it just a bit loose and then the whole thing turns the way it's supposed to. This funny altitude bar is probably the most exotic thing to people who are using newfangled telescopes. Using this thing is sort of a 2-piece. For big motions, you loosen this up, and for fine motions, you move it like so. This is not strictly necessary. In fact, Josh actually took his off, decided not to use it at all, and simply controlled the friction using these 2 knobs, and it works pretty well. I kind of like to use this. I find it handy. What I do is I make this just tight enough to hold a little bit, but not totally. So it'll slide, but with some resistance. And then when I want to do a little fine tracking, which usually happens when you're looking at a planet and it's moving down in the sky and you want to, at high power, you want to keep it in the field of view. Just nice to have a fine control. Now, if you unscrew it too much, it actually just unscrews like so, which is not the end of the world. You just, put it back in again. The only other funny thing about moving at an altitude is this design has a fundamental problem that it tends to bump into the mount when you try to point the scope directly up. You're not completely stuck here. I mean, you can always pick the tripod up, turn it around a little, so that now the scope is between the legs instead of bumping into a leg. This telescope is really a joy to use. More experienced people would probably, if they wanted to buy a second telescope, they might want to buy one of these simply because it's so compact. I mean, if you already own a big telescope, you don't want another telescope that's almost as big but not quite as good. The only point is this mount is just a little bit short for the refractor so that it doesn't hit the zenith. And with the 100mm reflector, if it's centered, it's quite annoying. This is just low enough to nick the bolt here, and you can easily fix that by sliding it forward, but it's a slightly annoying design defect. I mean, all they would have had to do is make this 1/8 of an inch taller and it would completely avoid that problem. That's my little demonstration for today. As we said in the review, all 3 of these telescopes are really great, and if you're in the market for a beginner telescope, I definitely recommend looking at them.